The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. As always, email is xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're coming to you tonight on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and of course, Channel 54 on Simul TV. Just in case you're wondering, X-Zone Nation, 13 days left till Christmas. Plenty of time for you to get onto Amazon and get whatever you need, or you can wait until the 24th, just before midnight, and go to your local Quickie Mart. It's totally up to you. I'd suggest going to Amazon personally. X-Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Ronny Dawson. We've had the pleasure of having Ronny on before, and he's got a very interesting story to tell us. Joining me now from Texas, where the rains are finally coming, Ronny.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be here on X-Zone again.
Good talking to you, Ronny. For the listeners who haven't had the opportunity of knowing about you and your story, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm just my name is Ronny Dawson. I've lived here in Texas most of my life, and I worked in the oil field. I'm an oil field crude oil transport driver.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'd never seen, I had a UFO encounter. I was having some UFO encounters in 2009, and I'd never seen anything like that before, ever. You know, it was, I didn't really believe in UFOs at that time, but I started seeing some stuff I couldn't explain. So, and my God, it just kept getting, crazier and crazier. Yeah. And,
Ronny, can you share with us, what was it that shifted you from a non-believer to a believer?
I think the first thing was I witnessed an up close and personal cattle abduction. I was watching some lights moving around, and it was freaking me out. And I seen them move down. They shine a blue light down the ground, and there was something in the blue light that was being lifted. It was about 30 feet up in the air and continuing to rise. And then my eyes came into focus on what was in that thing. And it was a cow, and it was whipping its head from side to side like it wasn't enjoying the ride.
Mm.
And at that, I thought about stopping and trying to look for my accident camera to get some pictures. And once I seen that it was a cow being lifted, all I wanted to do was get it out of there. Get out there. I didn't want to stick around for that.
Now, Ronny, you yourself are a contactee. Can you tell us about your contacts?
Yeah, the contacts just they just kept coming. I mean, it was like somehow or another I got my attention, and it was like it just, and like I said, in 2000, 2010, I seen the 2010 I had a home invasion, man. I mean, they came into my house and they ransacked my house, and they had me paralyzed in the bed, and I was watching them through the open bedroom door, run about the house. And I thought maybe I was having a medical condition, and there was some raccoons or something in my house. And then I seen one run across a vertical wall. And at that point I realized that this is probably the same guys that abducted the cow. I'd gotten their attention, and I've asked myself, why me? And the thing is, I drive a $250,000 vehicle out there in the middle of the night, and I'm loading crude oil that's being pulled out of the core of the earth. And so I got their attention at night, and maybe they thought I was a character that they decided that maybe I ran the operation or something. I have no idea why 8 billion people on earth, and they would choose me of all people. Like I said, I'm just an old truck driver. With the high school education, man, I'm not the guy you want to represent the human race.
Well, you never know. You never know. I think
you get in that situation, and you have to make the best of it. I mean,
so tell us, let's talk about the home invasion. What did these visitors look like?
Well, these guys, that was the only time I've seen this particular species of aliens. They were about 18 inches tall. They ran on all fours, and they ran so fast that when they were running, you couldn't see nothing but a streak. And I really couldn't get a good look at him until one of them stopped. Right, they had me paralyzed in bed. I was looking through the open door, and he stopped right in front of the doorway. And there was two other ones running around the house, and they had opened every drawer and every cabinet in the whole house, and they were ransacking through there like they were looking for something. And when that one stopped, he ran on all fours. He stopped and he stood up, and it had looked like an angry old man's face, but he had like an exoskeleton shell on it that looked more like an insect than it did a human. And it's the weirdest, ugliest thing you could ever imagine. And I was about 10 feet away looking at this thing. And so I got a really good look at it, and it wasn't pleasant to look at. And
now, was there anybody else at home with you, Ronnie?
no, I was living by myself at the time. And I had a girlfriend that was going to college, but like I said, we hadn't moved in together yet. So at that particular time, I was by myself here at the house, just me and my cat. And my cat was freaking out too. I mean, my cat seen him just because he stood in front. I heard a noise in the kitchen, and I looked through the open door, and there was my cat looking down towards the kitchen because I thought at first it was him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ran in there and jumped in bed with me when they were running around in the living room. And he was scared as I was, And when they eventually ran into the bedroom, he bailed. He wasn't paralyzed. I mean, he was right next to me. I was paralyzed, but he wasn't. He jumped off that bed and he ran off out there, slid around the corner, getting the heck out of there. And I wish I could go with him.
Wow. Yeah. Did these ETs try to communicate with you?
Not these guys, I think these guys were on a mission. I mean, I've encountered several different species, and I think some of the species of ET, they just use them like contract workers, like they have a task, they're assigned to it. And I mean, there's I've seen several different kind of aliens. And these guys, that's the only time I see them, and they seem like they were a really good reconnaissance team. And I have no idea what they were looking for. Perhaps the laser that I had in my house that I had fired at a UFO earlier was the only thing I could figure. Was that they were looking for that laser for some reason, and I thought it'd be missing. I had it in a locked gun cabinet, and they had unlocked that gun cabinet, and they had opened every drawer in the cabinet and unlocked the gun cabinet, and but the laser was still in there. I thought for sure it'd be gone, but it was still there.
Why did you fire a laser beam at a UFO?
We were trying to get some solid evidence to the skeptics and scholars that we're actually seeing some UFOs. I mean, lights in the darkness don't really prove anything.
Sure. And
I'm the kind of guy I understand people being skeptical, and I want to get the facts. I want to bring them the facts, and prove it. And we were thinking if I could fire the laser at the UFO and the crash propulsion system would cause the beam deviation of the laser, we could catch it on video, then we'd really have something solid to prove that this is actually not anything terrestrial. This is something non-terrestrial.
Now, when you say we, who are we?
I had my buddy with me that night, and we were, like I said, I'd seen like 2 UFO sightings in 7 days, and we were UFO watching, and I had the laser and I had a camera, and we had a plan that we were going to try to catch these guys and then shoot the laser around the UFO. And then he was supposed to video recorded, and he should have it because he was there. The camera was 3 feet away from him, but the guy had never seen a UFO before. And he just, I shined the laser at the UFO, and I thought they were fixing to take me out or something. I didn't know, because I thought, man, they're going to fire theirs back, and we may be 2 piles of ash here. It's the scariest thing I've ever done was I fired that laser around the UFO. I didn't get no beam deviation. I was disappointed. And I told him, I said, all right, man, I'm going to shine it on the thing to see if it reflects off of it like a mirror or if it absorbs it or what. And I shined the laser on the UFO, and it just absorbed the beam. I mean, it didn't even light up like you'd shine it on the side of a car or something. And I looked at my buddy and I said, I hope you're getting this on video. And he was about 3 feet from the camera, and he had his hands on his hips, and he was looking at the thing with his mouth wide open. And I'm like, going, no, man, you had one job. You had one job.
He was mesmerized.
Oh yeah. Well, I went up there. He probably thought, yeah, he's my buddy. I'll but we ain't gonna see nothing. But we did. He's actually the one that seen it first. He goes, man. He goes, what is that? Look. And it's a 4-light craft lit up probably 200 or 300 yards away. And it was probably a couple hundred feet up in the air. And it was the same light craft that I had been seeing. So it's like these guys were keying on me. They knew how to find me. I still don't understand how they find me when they want to, but they don't seem to have a problem.
What color were the 4 lights, Ronnie?
They were this whitish blue. And it was, and I, and I've talked to other people that have seen UFOs and stuff, and they say, "Man, I know your pictures were real when I seen the color of the lights." Because I finally got some pictures and video of the craft, and I've had people say, "That's it." As soon as I seen the color of the lights, I knew it's kind of a whitish light that's got kind of a soft blue tint to it, and Ronnie, it almost has a red glow somehow or another with it as well.
Ronnie, your buddy that was with you. Excuse me. Had he had any home invasions like you did?
I told him about it because it was the next night that I had the home invasion after we had done that, and he pretty much made a fortress out of his house. I mean, he changed the locks. He locked the windows. He secured the place, like. It scared him. I mean, but he didn't have. But the guy died a few years later, and in his house. And I almost wonder if he had a massive heart attack in his bed. And I was like, maybe they did come and see him, and it caused him to have a heart attack and die. I have no idea if that, if that's what went on. He was pretty young to die from a heart attack.
Hey, Ronnie, you and I have to take our first break. Please stand by. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Ronny Dawson, you can go on to LinkedIn, or better yet, get a copy of his book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any online bookstore. The name of the book is very simple, Ronny Dawson, UFO Story. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Ronny Dawson's with us, Exo Nation. His book is entitled Ronny Dawson, UFO Story. It's available Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. And I'm sure on every other online bookstore that is out there. Hey, Christmas time is coming. So if you know somebody who's into ufology, or if you're a UFO buff and you want to get yourself a book that is really cool to read, the name of the book again is Ronny Dawson, UFO Story. Ronnie, that was your first encounter. How long would you say this home invasion lasted?
I'd say it was probably 15 minutes or something like that. It didn't last all that long, and it was really weird. And it was frightening. It was a frightening thing. I mean, you could be horrified for so long, and then I was scared, frightened, scared to death. And then I was a prisoner in my bed and frustrated and angry. And at one point, I flew into a fit of rage. And it was like, if I can break loose, I'm going to kill me some dadgum aliens. And I already had a plan. I had a golf bag in a corner, and I was going to grab a golf club out of that thing and go to work on these guys. And when I tried to fight the force that was holding me down, it affected my breathing, and it felt like it almost stopped my heart. It was like the more force you exert, the more they use. And it felt like it almost killed me. And at that, I laid back in bed, and I knew I was at their mercy. But I tried to fight that thing with all my force, all my life. I thought it's live or die. Yeah. And I couldn't do anything. And when they released me, it was like that. The signal to my brain got processed. I jumped up out of that bed, and I screamed and cussed, and I grabbed that golf club. And I was in a fit of rage, like I had tried to do this like 5 or 10 minutes earlier without any success. And all of a sudden, that's the first thing that got processed. I had the golf club in my hand, and I basically was angry and in a fit of rage again. And so I went on an alien hunt, and I couldn't believe that every drawer and every cabinet in the whole house was open. And they had knocked over a lamp at the computer desk and broke a bulb, and they had knocked some dishes over at the sink and broke it, and there was some broken stuff around, and they ransacked my house. These little guys did.
Did they leave any imprints on the walls or on any of the furniture? When I say imprints, I'm talking about, was there any slime or goo or anything?
I wish there was, the funny thing was, there was a medical guy saying, if you really had a physical ET in your house, and he goes, you would have, he said the germs on those things would would almost kill you. It'd probably kill you, you know, if you came into contact with the same surface that a actual ET was on. And it got me thinking, because I was like in my underwear, and when I was closing cabinet stuff, my belly rubbed the countertop of by the sink, and I developed I don't know, it was a sore that it became infected on my stomach, and I mean, it got really bad. I went to the doctor several times. He couldn't find an antibiotic to kill it.
Wow.
You know, and he said, this is the strongest antibiotic I can give you. And he said, if this doesn't stop it, he said, we're going to have to send you to the CDC in Fort Worth, and they're going to have to design you an antibiotic to try to stop this thing before it kills you. And I mean, my whole intestines and stomach and everything was, it was pitiful red, and it was really nasty. And I thought, you know what, that could have been what that guy was talking about. Yeah. You know, my stomach rubbing against that counter those guys have been walking on. I didn't think anything about it at the time. You know,
So, Ronnie, that was your first experience. Am I correct? Where you actually had contact?
Yeah, that was the alien home invasion was the first time I'd got really up close and personal. I've seen them in a UFO looking at me from the compartment under the craft, but this time they were up close and personal. What
was your next experience with the rotten little buggers who tried to do the home invasion?
Well, those little guys, I'd never seen them again.
No
but
way.
I mean, a year later, and I hadn't seen anything. I hadn't seen any lights moving around out at work or anything. And I thought it was just silent and quiet. And I thought, well, you know, as crazy as it was, I guess I'll ever see anything like that again. And I was out there in Coma, Texas. I was working nights. I was hauling a load of crude oil, and I pulled up to a rural location, and all of a sudden this lights came on out here in the trees, and this craft, a UFO, rose up. These are mesquite trees. They ain't that tall, you know, and the lights came out on the ground. This thing rose up, and it was fixing to pass right over my truck. I was talking to a friend on the phone, and I told him, and I hung up the phone, and I was hanging on my window fixing to try to get my camera to open up to get a picture of this thing. And it just, all the lights on it just blinked out.
Wow.
But they didn't leave. A little bit later, the lights came back on, and eventually the craft, I came back on. I got some video, and then the craft came back on, and it started approaching me. And I could see the disc blocking out the stars overhead. And I'd never been so scared in my whole life. You know, I mean, my whole life, I thought, man, I'm not going to be here much longer. They're fixing to load me up and take me somewhere. And when you see that stars getting blocked out, and you see that disc moving over your head, and then that compartment underneath that craft lights up, and you can see something moving around there like it's looking for you or looking at you. And I wanted to run for my life, but my knees were shaking so bad I could barely even pull off a walk. All I could do was kind of run around there and hide. And but luckily I got a picture. And if you guys want to see some of these pictures, you can go to Google Images and just look up Ronny Dawson UFO pictures. I filled my phone full of pictures and video that night. I seen 3 different UFOs, and there was a mile-long mothership flew right over the top of my head at one point. And I got a video. I got like a 7-second video of the left half of the thing. And I tell you what, there's stuff on that thing that, man, it's like it's ever been touched by human hand. Let's just put it that way.
Now, were you in your truck when this happened?
I was in my truck. Yeah, at work, loading crude oil. And I've been doing this my whole life, and I ain't never seen anything like this, you know. And when that mothership came over, it was a mile long. And I mean, if that thing would have fell out of the sky, it'd have crushed me, the tank battery, the truck, the whole area. You would have needed a golf cart to drive around this thing. And it was close to the ground. It was, for something that big, it was, I guarantee it wasn't no more than 500 feet up in the air. And I had some guys, you know, they were skeptical, and they said, well, you know, if you really saw that, you wouldn't mind filing a FAA low craft report. I said, absolutely not, man. I seen this thing. I got pictures of it. I ain't got nothing to hide. And I did file a FAA low craft report, and I never mentioned the word UFO in the report whatsoever. I just said it was a very large craft, and it was way too low to the ground. And we did a phone conference with the FAA, and the FAA said that all known craft were accounted for at that time, and that I should report my UFO to Newfork. And I thought, the FAA just described this thing as a UFO. They didn't tell me what they seen on the radar or nothing like that. They didn't give me any clue what it was, but they called it a UFO and suggested that I report it to the Newfork.
And
National
of course,
UFO
that's the
Reporting
National
Center.
UFO Reporting
Right.
Center with Peter Davenport.
Right.
Now, when this craft was 500 feet over your head, was it emanating any sound?
You couldn't really hear a sound, but you could see this thing looked like solid rock. I mean, it looked like you were looking at the surface of the moon. It had pits and burn marks and craters on it.
Wow.
And it looked like I was looking up at solid rock. And when it first came over me, I didn't think it was a UFO at all. I thought this is a giant meteor, probably fixed to come in and take me out, and God knows how many other people. And then all of a sudden this thing started slowing down. And then the first part that passed over me started tilting up. And then this thing made the smoothest 90-degree transition you could ever imagine and accelerate like for just a big flying rock. This thing made the smoothest turn and it took off like a jet. I mean, you could see the air rushing off of it. You could see it was creating circles of wind as something that big. When it moves that quick, it made like two giant vortexes of wind, and you could see the fog and the smoke rolling off the surface of it like water over a waterfall as it was starting to move. So there was definitely some wind action going across the surface of it.
Were there any reports of this UFO besides the one you made to Peter Davenport at the National UFO Reporting Center?
And I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it. Anything a mile long could come into U.S. airspace and not make the news. And there wasn't anything in the paper. There wasn't anything on the news. I was just shocked. I was like, "There's no way that something this big could come over U.S. airspace and not even get reported."
What time of night was this, Ronnie?
It wasn't even that late at night. I mean, this was. I would think it was like 9:00 p.m.
Wow.
There
should have been people
early
outside who would have seen this as well.
Yeah, you think,
yeah,
but it was cool, cool enough outside that people just ain't going to hang around out there, and late enough, everybody's inside watching TV, I guess. I don't know, but
in the area where you saw the UFO, is there any Air Force base nearby that you can think of?
There's not really much of one.
No,
nothing. Well, Dyess Air Force Base is like 68 miles away. But like I said, there's radars there's a Abilene Regional Airport radars like 60 miles, Dyess Air Force Base 68 miles, 132 miles away in Snyder, Texas. There's a 600-mile military radar. So I know good and well there's got to be some radar footage of this thing. And I've told people, man, if you want to check it out, see if you could find that radar footage. And I even had a buddy that's an air traffic controller, and he said, I'm going to take a look at it. But he said he tried to look at it and he couldn't access the file. But it could just have been that I'd filed that FAA report and it was being examined at the time and he couldn't access it. So I can't guarantee you that it had been removed. Maybe it wasn't accessible to him at the time.
Scary stuff. Ronnie, stand by. We've got to take our break. And when we come back, we'll continue this fascinating story with our guest this hour, Ronny Dawson. And if you'd like to get a copy of Ronnie's book, it's entitled Ronny Dawson, UFO Story. It's available on Barnes Noble, Amazon.com, and fine bookstores online everywhere. Ronnie and I return after this very short break. Don't go away. Ronny Dawson's our guest, Exo Nation. And let me see if I've got the chain of events right. Alien home invasion 2010. Then we had the mothership that we were talking about in 2011.
Right.
2017, you had another contact. Tell us about the 2017 event.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. It just you see something crazy as a home invasion, you think you're never going to see anything crazier than that. And then you have the UFO mothership fly over, and you think you're never going to see anything crazier than that.
Yeah.
And we had some weird activity going around the house. A lot of UFO experiencers and alien contactees, they have it's like ghosts. We never had no ghost around in my house, Yeah. And but we're starting to see some weird stuff on cameras and stuff like that. And I've caught some footage of it, and it's on my YouTube channel, the Ronny Dawson YouTube channel. And I actually post that footage there. And so you can actually see it, but it was like we were doing a UFO video right here in my living room, and it was like ET decided to make an appearance on that thing, and it
what happened?
We were I was making a UFO video about the Coleman, Texas encounter and the mothership flyover and stuff, and featuring some of the footage, and all of a sudden my cameraman was the same guy that I had was up on the hill with that was supposed to video recorded the UFO. He said, I swear to God, I just saw what looked like a ghost behind you. And I'm going, right behind me? He goes, yeah, well, you were talking right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
It was a ghost. And I thought, what? I got to buy me a better camera guy, But when we looked at the footage, I didn't see it at first, but we posted it. And then somebody on YouTube said, hey, what is that about 133? And we looked at it, man, sure enough, you can see the facial figure of this thing, and it really moved quick. You have to really slow it down. I had to really slow it down where my mouth is just barely moving when I talk, and you can really see this thing. And then I turned the brightness up all the way, and you could see it even better. And it was like you could see like a humanoid figure appear behind me. It's like E.T. knew we were talking about him. He decided to make an appearance. So I had a suspect that they were watching me, and I went to Roswell like in I think it was 2016, and I talked to Stanton Friedman, and I showed him some of the pictures I got, and I said, if I get a chance to talk to these guys, I said, what should I ask them? I'm just no dumb truck driver, man. I need to talk to somebody smarter than me. What do I need to say or ask these guys? And I said, and he had Don Schmidt with him, and Don Schmidt said, well, I asked them how they got here. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. And then Stanton said, no, he said, tell them to show you how they got here. And I said,
even better.
Even better idea. So, and I remember that. And it was a few months later that it was in 2017. And I was working nights. I was sleeping late in the morning. It didn't even happen at night. It was in the morning. It was in the early morning hours when all this went down. And I'm sitting there, and I was in bed asleep, and all of a sudden I had like a weird dream, like there was like two females pulling on my arms, and then I slipped out of their grasp, and I fell immediately back to sleep. And I thought, that was a weird dream. And then all of a sudden they had me again, and they were pulling on me, and they said, and one of them looked right at me, and she said, help us. And I didn't know. I felt like they were pulling me out of a manhole or something. I didn't realize they were pulling my physical consciousness out of my body. I'm not an astral traveler, and I'm not a vivid dreamer where I dream this kind of stuff. And I thought, and they pulled my physical consciousness out of my sleeping body, and I didn't realize it at the time.
Right.
And there's two females having me, and they pulled me out, and I said, no, they said, we're sorry for disturbing your rest, but we needed to have a conversation. And I thought, man, my wife has got some girlfriends of hers playing a joke on me or something. And then they said, you're fine. You'll be all right. We're not going to hurt you. And they started to kind of reassure me. And I'm looking at them going, and I was like, man, they're wearing some really good costumes. One of them was a blue woman.
A blue woman.
Oh, like she was 6'3". It wasn't the little bitty creatures. And another one was she looked like she was shorter, stockier, had a lot more muscle and big hair. And you could see these ears sticking through the tip of her hair. And when you look at her, she had a woman's face, but right her nose turned into a lion's mouth. And she even had whiskers coming out of her top lip.
Wow.
And I thought if that's a costume, it's a dadgum good one, because it was like, and they were speaking English with my mouth, and that cat woman, she was having a hard time making certain words. She was speaking intelligently English, and but she was having a hard time pronouncing certain words. But she would change just like a person with a speech impediment. She was having trouble saying something, she would reword it. And I thought, wow. Okay, well, this is either a really good costume and then saying they pulled me out of my sleeping body, said, you're all right. Your body's sleeping right there. And I looked, and there was somebody in bed in my spot where I sleep. And I wanted to make sure it was me. So I tried to take a step. And when I took a step, I fell forward. I didn't know why I fell forward. I put my hand out. It landed on my own leg in bed. And it held my weight for just a second. And then my hand is almost like I broke that leg of that person sleeping in the bed. And my hand went right through the bone into the bed. And then I jerked my hand back, and I tried to stand, and I stood back up, And by this time, they're grabbing me by the arms and they're waiting by the bed. And I'm looking down at the bed and I can't see. It's like my legs below my knees didn't make the trip, because I thought you could see where my legs went to the bed, and then all I could see was bed. But they grabbed me and they walked me out of the bed. And they said, well, look, they said, this is where the people of your world and the people of our world are going to meet. They said it's safe from bacterial and viral harm, and this is where we have to meet. And so to keep our worlds from being cross-contaminated with viruses and bacteria. And they said, you can move through solid matter here. Physical body's there asleep. You're fine. You're all right. And I was taking all this in, going, my God, and, trying to come to the reality. I'm actually looking at 2 dadgum aliens in my room. And the blue lady, she said, put your hand on the cat lady's face. And she said, right up here by her hair, she said, now push. She said, gently push. And I started pushing, and I could feel her hair. I could feel her face. And then they said, keep pushing. And my hand started sinking into her head, and I could feel the brain matter inside her. Like I could feel her brain, and I pulled my hand out, and it almost felt like my hand should have been wet, but it wasn't. I could feel moisture, but my hand wasn't wet. And I thought, wow, that's weird. And she said, yeah, this is a place that the people of your world and the people of our world will eventually meet, And
so would you describe it as a different dimension?
I think it's I think that's where they came from, a different dimension. And I don't know how. I had a hard time grasping exactly where these guys came from.
Right.
And but I know in this reality you can move through solid matter, but at one point, and I remember and they gave me a little brief history lesson. They said they live in an interdimensional world that's close to us, but that we can't see it. And they said our nuclear testing sent light and radiation off of one of their planets, and they had been in an interdimensional war with some beings, and they thought that maybe Earth was a staging area. So they didn't come here to make friends. They come here to check out our nuclear testing had sent light and radiation. And they thought maybe it was a staging area. So they come here looking for the guys that had attacked them they had been at war with. And they found us, and they had been investigating us since the latter part of the 40s. So, and that's the reason they could speak English, is because they've been here since the latter part of the 40s. Yeah. I've been here since 1960, and I speak English. So why wouldn't they?
Listen, are these the people, in your opinion, that abducted that cow?
I don't know if they abducted the cow or they have. I think they have like contract workers. Like they have. There's several different groups of different aliens, and it's like the cat lady came from a different planet than the blue lady, because later on in the because I remember what Stanton Friedman told me. At one point, I asked him. I said, "Can you show me how you got here?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, I could show you." They act like, well, we really don't have time for this, but yeah, all right, we'll show you. And they said, all you have to do is walk through this wall right here. And I was kind of timid because there was a picture on the wall, and there was a glass over the picture, and my face was going into that glass, and I was afraid it would cut my face.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was going really slow, and it seemed like it was irritating them. They're going, just go, you'll be all right. Just, go through the wall, and you'll be able to see my planet. You can see. I didn't know what I was walking into. And I remember that I had to, you don't just move through the wall like you're moving through smoke. It was actually, it puts us in resistance. It's like you have to struggle through the wall. It's like you have mass, but not a whole lot of mass. And it was like when you move through solid matter, you have to like struggle through it. It's not like you can just walk through smoke. So I was like having to struggle through the wall, and it was really uncomfortable. I felt the sheetrock in my wall going through my stomach and intestines, and I could feel it passing through and in my brain and stuff like that. And it didn't hurt, but it was a very odd, uncomfortable feeling. Like you wouldn't want to just stand there in it. Yeah. It was an unnatural feeling. And I kept moving through this thing. And I remember I hit a stud in the wall on my right shoulder, and I really had to struggle through that stud. It was like that. I could feel that stud. There's something in the wall, and I had to struggle harder to get through it. And later I tested that area that I had walked through, and there is a stud right where my shoulder would have hit inside that wall. I tested it with the stud finder.
Sure.
I put that on YouTube as well. But when I went through that wall, I didn't know. I thought it'd be a tunnel. I didn't know what to expect on the other side, and I think there was some miscommunication there. I think they wanted me to look through the wall. I don't think they intended for me to walk through the wall, because I took a step through the wall to get all the way through it, and I ended up falling into outer space and there was a planet off to my left, and it wasn't Earth. I don't know where this thing is at. I don't know how. And then and you could look up in the sky, and the sky was really lit up because there was like a black hole clearly in. Now the stars looked like our stars, but there was a black hole in clear view of their sky. Like, I don't know if it's a galactic center or what it was, but you could see all these stars caught trapped by this thing, and this thing was making so much light. I think I was looking at the dark side of their planet at night, but it's not dark. There was so much light because of all the planets near there. It was lit up pretty well, and it was like I only seen like 3 major continents, and there was a really thin oceans, and there was a large desert area, and there was almost like a jungle area next to the ocean. I seen one large inland lake. You know, I was going, I've got to take everything in. I know this is important. Take everything. And I was looking around and looking at the black hole, and I could see, I thought it might have been a sun, but I think it was a moon that was shining on the other side of the planet. I could just barely see it. And I kind of realized that, okay, it's either the sun, I'm looking at the dark side of the planet, but actually it may have just been a moon. But while I was up there, I started doing this slow forward head flip, and my head was like going down and my feet was going over, and I did this flip a time or two, and I thought when I'm coming back, this would give me a chance to look at what I just walked out of, because I'm like, so I'm looking to see what did I just walk out of? Was it a ship? What was it? And what it was, when I came around and looked at it, it was a crystalline black box. I mean, just a black crystal. I didn't see no windows, nothing. It was just like you took a black crystal box and put it in outer space, and that's what the outside of this thing was. I didn't see any kind of technology on it, just a crystalline black box floating in outer space. And inside that thing is my bedroom, and outside that thing, this is another dimension or another galaxy, or I have no idea what this is. But I'm sitting there doing this head flip, and I started getting kind of sick. And then there's this rocky moon came floating by between me and the planet. And it almost looked like Phobos, that ugly moon that goes around Mars. You know, it was just a solid rock that floated between me and the planet. And I'm getting started. I feel like I'm getting kind of sick.
Yeah,
there's so much moving. I'm doing this flip, and everything's moving, and I thought, man, I don't know how I'm going to get back in this thing. You know.
So how did you get back home, Ronnie?
One of these. When I was flipping back up, one of these gals or something grabbed me by the shoulder, and I mean, it grabbed me by the shoulder, and I went to flipping around, and I was grabbing onto it because I was afraid it was going to throw me. If they lost grip from me, I'd be floating off in outer space forever, you know. So I was helping, you know, hang on, and I was flipping side to side, and they pulled me back in the box, and they pulled me right through the wall again, and there I was in my bedroom again. I was like, thank God, I'm good. It's good to be back here. I thought I'd be out there forever. I didn't know.
Holy crow.
But I wasn't cold. It wasn't hot. I didn't have to have air to breathe. So it's like when you're in this state, you know, I never felt, temperature, and I didn't need air to breathe, and it wasn't cold. And I felt perfectly fine, you know.
Was this your last encounter?
No.
They keep going on.
Every time it just keeps getting weirder, and it got weirder, even weirder than this. Well, when they pulled me back through, they said, well, we've been tasked with collecting a genetic sample. And I'm going, oh boy, here we go. And I'm sitting here coming to terms with these guys are from another world, and they have technology that we really could use. And if you're representing the whole human race, you probably should do whatever they want and try to be as friendly as you can with them.
Sure.
And I'm talking, if they need a genetic sample, and I'm thinking, well, my God, you know, I might have to take one for the team here, whatever that means, you know.
What a guy.
But I'm like, look, I said, whatever it takes for the people of your world and the people of my world to meet, I'm willing to do. He said, I'm willing to help you in this process. I didn't know what I said that because it was the right thing to say. It was, and it was the right time to say it. But I didn't know what I was getting myself. I just volunteered to assist these guys in the alien agenda without really knowing it. And anyway, they wanted a genetic sample, and they wanted me to have sex with the cat lady. And I'm thinking, did I just hear what she said? The blue lady, so she said, she's our geneticist, and if you wouldn't mind, she could get everything she needed if you just be willing to have sex with her. And they said, you don't have to, you don't got to. They said, but you'd be helping us out a lot if you did. And I thought, my God, that's the weirdest request I've ever heard. And then the blue lady kind of whispered to me. She said, look, she said, on their world, they have sex like the people of your world smile at strangers and shake hands. And I thought, what? And she goes, yeah, the people at my world think it's weird too. And she said, it's just she could get whatever she needed, and the blue lady stepped out and she started taking her clothes off, and she had stripes and she had this hair it was a thin hair that covered her body. And she had these black stripes that went around her waist and the back of her legs. And she, and she had a tail. I mean, this thing is whipping back and forth. And I'm thinking, my God. And then guess what? Guess who comes walking through the bedroom? My wife. My wife is home. She comes walking through the bedroom, and you can see her plain as day. And I thought,
and here you are having sex with an alien.
No, not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Okay. She walked to the room twice.
Oh,
the first time she walked to the room, we were having a conversation, and my wife walked to the bedroom on her way to the bathroom, and she said she can't see us. She said that they can't hear or see us when we're here. And my wife walked. I could see the clothes she's wearing. She walked to the bathroom, and when she come walking back from the bathroom, she stopped for a second and she looked over where we were standing, and the cat lady alien kind of freaked out, and she looked at the blue lady and she said, "Can she see us?" Because and the blue lady said no, and she said she's looking at him, and she pointed in my body sleeping on the bed. Paused for a second, and she continued walking. And later I asked her, I said, you walked to the bathroom, and you came back and you stopped and you looked over and at us in bed. I was talking to them, two aliens, and you couldn't see me. And I said, I was sleeping in bed. I said, why did you stop? And she said, well, you have sleep apnea. And she said, I worry about you stopping breathing. So she said, I'll stop. I'll pause. I see you breathing all right. And then I continue on my way. I never knew she did that.
All right, Ronnie, we're running out of time really fast here. I have to ask you, did you have sex with that cat alien?
Yes.
You
I
animal,
did.
you.
I did.
Animal.
There was 2 times.
How was it?
That was the first time, and the second time was in 2020. This time what they did, they made a clone for me that time, and in 2020 they took my physical body again and they transported it and put it into a clone on an alien world.
Wow.
And that clone had a 17-inch alien penile augmentation added to it. That wasn't mine. It was my body, but it was that part of me is not there. And it was basically a function test. And they said, you said you'd be willing to help us do whatever we wanted to do. And I think what it's all about is they're working on a means for interdimensional travel for us. They can't make a clone of 8 billion people. Right. So they're trying to make a genetic clone that they could put each one of us in. And they need large quantities of samples from the masses. She said, we need genetic material from the masses. And she said, do you think if we made open contact with your people of the world that they'd be willing to give it to us? And I said, yeah, I think if you made open, friendly contact, I said, I think you could get all the genetic material you wanted. And so basically I volunteered for this little project, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but
any regrets?
No, I think it was the right thing to do. I still think it's the right thing to do, and I'm still willing to help them anytime they need me to help them.
Are you still having contact with them?
It was the last time was about it wasn't this November. It was about a year ago, November
2021.
And, I had another odd encounter. This time, the Anunnaki, I didn't know if I really, Anunnaki, and they talked about the fallen angels were the ones that they said the ones that they were at war with, and they think may have used the earth as a stationary. They said it sounds a lot like your fallen angels that that's referenced in your Bible. And
Nephilim, yeah.
yeah. And anyway, I got to meet one of those guys about last November, and it wasn't a nice encounter. And this guy basically threatened me and said, "Your friends ain't here to help you now." And he said, "I'm here to investigate how much problem you've caused us." And he said, "I've looked in your future." And he said, your future is very short. He said, "You're going to get sick and you're going to get sick when you're 63 and you're going to die when you're 65. And you said, no one will ever believe you, and you ain't causing us any problem. So you might as well just shut up."
Wow.
And this guy was 12 feet tall, and absolutely, when you see how big those guys were on in Egypt on the engravings, that's how big this guy was. He had me in a basket hold, and my feet was down to about his waist. In fact, at one point I was trying to kick him in the groin with my ankle. That's how big this guy was.
Listen, Ronnie, before we say so long to you, because time has gone by so fast, first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and continued success with your book. And Exonation, if you'd like to get a copy of Ronnie's book, it's entitled Ronny Dawson. That's Ronny Dawson, UFO Story. As we've said before, it's available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and I'm sure at other online bookstores. The two extraterrestrials, the blue lady and the cat lady, was there any way that you could contact them now and tell them what this fallen angel said and how he threatened you?
Well, the next night, the alien doctor that was there, the second time I had sex with the cat lady, it was in a surgery room setting, and this angry alien doctor's barking directions at me the whole time. And that same alien doctor was there the next day, and he said, "Don't worry about that guy." And he showed me a picture of myself, and he said, you're gonna have this embolism. And he said we could put this on it, and we can fix you. He said, "Don't worry about it." And I'm like, well, it don't sound like it's in my control either way, but
sure.
So I don't know what to believe. I guess if I die here in a few years, you'll know.
Well, we certainly don't want that to happen, Ronnie.
No, I don't either.
So I want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourself, Ronnie. And if I don't have the